Creating these classes requires equipment and services that cost money. If you appreciate this education, please think about going to elithecomputerguy.com and offering a one-time or monthly recurring donation. Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to use PHP in order to update your records in your tables within your MySQL database. So if you've been following along, at this point we've connected to a database, we've been able to run select SQL statements off the database, we've been able to insert data into the database, and now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be updating records. Everything that I show you today is going to be 95% of what I've already shown you before. I'm going to show you how to connect to the database, I'm going to show you how to create the SQL statement, and then I'm going to show you how to send that SQL statement to the database. The only difference here is we are going to be updating records instead of inserting or selecting. So the warning for today's particular video is do remember that MySQL does not have an undo button, right? So a lot of new people, when they go out there and they're used to using consumer facing applications, they're used to, if they do something really stupid, they can simply click the undo button and whatever their stupidity was will go away. MySQL doesn't have that. If you write a SQL statement that actually runs, that does not error out, it will go through and it will do whatever you tell it to do, right? And so when you're doing things like select statements, that's not really a big deal, right? Because if you make a stupid select statement, then you'll just get a report that doesn't make any sense. You're not actually affecting the records within the tables within your database. The issue that you run into is once we start doing updates, you are editing the records within your table, and if you make a stupid update, that could affect a whole bunch of different records. So the example that I'm going to be showing you today, we're going to be going through and basically we're going to be writing what type of uniform different students should get. So girls that are under a certain age should get skirts, girls that are over a certain age should get dresses, and boys should get blazers, right? Just to use an example. But one of the things you have to realize is once we send this update statement, any place where the where equals whatever we tell it that it's going to equal, it will go through and it will rewrite. So every place, like when we do the update statement, every place where the gender is a boy, then the uniform will be rewritten to blazer. Well, if you had any kind of custom entries in there or anything like that, everything else will be overwritten. So one of the important things is once you start messing around with updating, especially like mass updating using scripts on your MySQL tables, one of the things that you want to do is you want to back up your tables beforehand before you start actually working on your tables. Because, you create a table, you add 10 or 20, doesn't even seem like a lot, right? You add 10 or 20 records, just so you actually have a table, you have some information to be working with. Well, if you go through and you misformat your update and you totally screw up that table, you're going to have to sit there for another 20 or 30 minutes to recreate that table if you don't have a backup that you can recover from. So once you really start going in and you start doing things like updating your MySQL database, my warning for you is back up everything beforehand so that if you do something really stupid, you can simply recover from whatever your backup is and then start over again. So that's the warning for today. And with that, let's go over to the computer and I can show you how this update works. Welcome back to my lab environment. So as always, I've been using Ubuntu Desktop 18.04 LTS. This is running within a virtual machine on VirtualBox, running on my MacBook Pro. In order to create the LAMP stack on this particular system, I use something called TaskCell that installed Apache, MySQL, and PHP. I have the default INI files. I've not modified any of the configuration files. Literally the only thing that I've done is within the root directory for Apache, the HTML directory, I created a PHP folder just to dump the PHP scripts into, so they're easier to manage, essentially. So with that, this is a script that we're going to be dealing with, but before we get to the script, I want to go over and I want to take a look at our MySQL database. So we go on the apps, we click in terminal, we hit enter, so this gets us to our terminal. From here, we're going to log into MySQL, so MySQL, space -u, username, space -p to ask for password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, super secret password, and now we're in our MySQL database. Again, it's important to understand what your database looks like, what the naming conventions are, right? Because remember, your script can only access and can only interact with what you tell it to interact with. So if you misspell a database, if you misspell a table, if you misspell records or anything else, and it doesn't exist, then your script is not going to work. So let's go in here. First thing we're going to do is show databases, just to know what databases we're dealing with. And then when we look at our databases, we have our standard default databases here. The database that we are going to care about is the class uppercase DB. This is the exact same database we've been using for all of our classes up until this point. So to get into that database, do class uppercase DB. We're now in the database. From here, what we're going to do is we're going to do show tables. And then we're going to look for our table. So we got a whole bunch of different tables in here. So we've got the insert demo from what we had before. We have a parts table. We have a parts backup table. The table that we're going to be dealing with today is the students table. So now what we want to do is we want to take a look at the students table. Basically, what is the schema for the students table? What type of what columns are there? What data types does it accept? So we're going to do describe, DESC. And then we're going to do students, semicolon, of course. And so now we're looking at the students table. So the first field is a student underscore ID. That is an int. That's the primary key, and that is an auto increment. So basically this just increments every time a new record is created. That increments up 1. Then we have a field of a name. That is a type of text. We have a field of age. That is a type of int. We have a field of gender. That is a type of text. And we have uniform, which is a type of text. So what we're going to do here is name, age, and gender has already been filled out. Uniform is going to be blank, and that is what we are going to be running our update SQL statement against, basically our update script. So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to do select all from students. Again, just to verify that there actually are records in this table and what those records look like. Hit enter, and so now we can see. So we've got the student ID, we got the name, we got the age, we have the gender, and what I'm showing you here is that the uniform is completely blank. So again, with this kind of script, think about something along the lines of imagine you have some kind of kids camp. So you're gonna have a kids camp in the summer, and so you need to know what uniforms to purchase, who needs what uniforms. And so basically what we're going to do is we're going to be able to run this update statement, and based off of certain things, it'll tell you what type of uniform you need. So if it's a boy, the uniform is going to be a blazer, so you're going to need to buy a blazer. If it's going to be a girl, let's say under 10 years old, then you're going to need to buy a skirt. And then if it's a girl over 10 years old, then you're going to need to buy dresses, right? That's basically what we're going to be looking at today. So from here, the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to back up this table. So again, since we're actually going to be modifying this table, and as soon as we access this script, the table will get modified. So to make sure we don't screw up anything, or we can recover if we screw up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do create table student underscore back. I'm not putting the if not exists just because I don't want to. And then I'm going to say like students. Oops, we're going to do students underscore back. So students underscore back like students, right? So basically what this is going to say is I want to create a table with the same schema. So up here, this whole describe. So with the same columns and the same data types. I want it to look like students, right? Then I'm going to do semicolon in order to create that table. And then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert. And then we're going to do students underscore back. Select all from students. And so what this is going to do is it's going to dump all of the records from the students table into this new backup table that we've created. Then I'll do semicolon, hit enter. So that ran through, didn't have any problems. So now I can do select all from students underscore back, semicolon. Okay, so now our students underscore back table now has the same schema and it has the same records as our initial students table. So this is a very important process to have a backup so you can simply very easily recover from the backup when you're going through and you're doing modifications. So with that, let's go over and actually take a look at our PHP code. Now for this particular script, I have named this PHP update.php, and again, this is simply in the PHP folder within the root directory for Apache. Most at the top is what you're used to seeing before. Again, we're going to open up the PHP script here, and then we are going to create variables for the MySQL database connection and set the values for the variables. So $server name we are going to set to localhost. Since the MySQL database server is on the same system that this script is running, we simply do localhost. Then we have the username of Bob and the password of 123456. Again, the important thing here is that whatever username you feed it, it has to have the privileges in order to do whatever it is that you're trying to do. So this becomes important like with update, right? So if you create an account that does not have the ability to update, that's going to run you into issues. So again, username and password, I would suggest at this point in time, you make it the root, basically have root permissions for your database server, and then past that, we just plug in whatever the database is. Then we're going to create the $con variable as we have before. We do new MySQL I, and then this is where we feed in the server name, the username, the password, and the database, just like we've done before. Close the parentheses, and we do the semicolon. Past this, again, we go into the if statement for whether or not there's a connection. Essentially, for this, if there's a connection error, so if it tries to connect and there's an error, kill the attempt to connect, print out connection failed, and then print out what the error is. Again, we've gone over this a few times before. Past that, we're going to come down here, and now we get to the new SQL statement that actually becomes interesting. And so we have the $SQL as we had before, and now we're going to make it equal, and we're going to make it equal to an update statement versus a select or an insert. So here what we're going to be looking at is update. We plug in what table we're going to be dealing with, just like with normal MySQL. And so it's a students table. We're going to set the uniform to equal. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to do single quotation mark for whatever's inside. And so we're going to say set the uniform to equal blazer. So within single quotation marks, you put whatever it is. And then we're going to say where, and then for this, gender equals single quotation marks boy. So where the gender equals boy, we want to set the value for the column uniform to be blazer. You close the single quotation mark and then you close the double quotation mark. So the double quotation mark is for the whole SQL statement. The single quotation mark is for the value that we're going to be inserting. Past that, you do the semicolon. Then we come down here. This is where we actually feed the SQL statement. So if connection query, so use the query function. What we're going to do is we're going to send the SQL statement. So we're going to send this that we created up here. If this equals true. So basically, if the value and the data type equals true, all uppercase letters, then what it's going to say is records updated. So basically what this means right here is if the query actually goes through, it doesn't fail out for some stupid reason, then we're simply going to say records are updated. Else, then you're going to have the error concatenate with the SQL statement that you sent. So again, maybe there's an error with a SQL statement. We're going to say what SQL statement you sent. You're going to have a break, and then it's going to print out the connection error. So this script will go through, and again, like if we take a look at our MySQL database right now, right? We do select, let's say all from students. Semicolon, we can go through and we can say in the uniform column there is nothing filled out. So all we're going to do is we're going to save this, make sure it's saved. We're then going to go to Firefox. In order to be able to trigger the script, we're going to go 127.0.0.1. This is your loopback address. Then within the root directory of Apache is our PHP folder that I created. And then I'm going to do PHP updates.php. So this will trigger the script. Hit enter, and if everything goes right, we will see records updated. From here, we'll go back to terminal. So as we can see previously, there was nothing in the uniform section. We're going to do select all from students again, and now we can see that the boys now have blazers, right? Girls still have nothing, but all the boys have blazers. But this is one of the important things to understand with the update. Any place where that where equals whatever you plugged in there, it will do the modification. So this modified 4 records in a fraction of a second. So that's one of those things that you have to be careful about. So one of the things we can do here then is, let's say we want to do multiple things. So let's say all boys. So all boys, whatever their age, for whatever reason, get blazers. Again, boys don't get a lot of options in clothes. We get burlap sacks. We get different types of burlap sacks. On the other hand, girls do get many options of clothes. So let's say we're worried about girls' sexuality. So if they're under 10 years old, we want them to be able to wear skirts. But if they're over 10 years old, we want them to wear dresses. So what we can say is set uniform to skirt where gender equals girl, and we say age is less than 10, right? So basically, where their gender is girl and age is less than 10, we are going to set uniform to be skirt. So from here, we have to hit save. Then we go back to Firefox. Since we already have the URL typed in, at this point all we have to do is we just simply have to hit refresh. That will give us our records updated again. I go to terminal, I do select all from students, and now we can see that Sue is a 9-year-old girl, and she has been changed to a skirt. So past that, we can go here. Again, so we want to change the uniform to dress. So again, those older young women have to be more modest. So we're going to say dress. So we're going to say where gender equals girl and age is then greater than 10. We want that to be modified to dress. We will hit save. We will go back to Firefox. We will simply hit refresh because we already have the script in the browser. Records updated, so there were no failures. So now I can go here and do select all from students again. And so now all the uniforms have been filled out. So Bombi is a 12-year-old boy, he gets a blazer. Sue is a 9-year-old girl who gets a skirt. Lucy is a 15-year-old girl who gets a dress. Freddie is a 14-year-old boy, gets a blazer, so on and so forth. But this is a very easy way you can go through and you can update a table for possibly like new records, new information you need to be able to get out of your database that you may not have initially put in there. And so basically this is all there is to being able to run a MySQL update using a PHP script. Again, you do updates or do update on the table, then you do set whatever the column name is. Then you put in what you want it to be set to. If it is a string, basically if it is text, you do the single quotation marks. Then you just simply say where, and then you say whatever the column name is, and then you say whatever you want it to be equal to or greater. You can do equal to, you can do less than, you can do greater to or greater than, the whole 9 yards. And then again, like I do, say you save, you go to Firefox, you call that script, it runs. As long as everything works out properly, then your table has been updated. So that's all there is to updating records within your table and your MySQL database. Again, it's basically what I've shown you before. Now all we're doing is we're using an update statement versus a select or an insert statement for what we have within the PHP script. The main warning, Will Robinson, that I have to tell you though, is remember, it will go through and it will modify based off of whatever you've told it to modify off of. So if you plug in something like, wherever it's a girl, do X, Y, or Z, it will go through. And if you have 2 records that equal that, it'll modify 2 records. If you have 2,000 records that equal that, it will modify 2,000 records. So you have to be very careful with this. And again, that's why one of the things that you want to do, especially when you're playing around, is you want to create a backup of your tables. Even if you don't make a mistake, even if you don't really screw up your table, just to have the initial table that you have with that initial amount of records that have already been input into it. And so after you've done a lot of screw screwing around, you can simply reset, go back to whatever you originally created, and make life a lot easier for you. Again, as a new person, one of the things you don't think about is creating a table and adding, it honestly doesn't sound like a lot, but if you create a table and you add somewhere between 10 to 50 records in that table just so you have something to work with, that actually takes a couple minutes of time to recreate. So if you literally have to add 50 records to a new table every time you want to start over or you want to test something, that's going to eat up a lot of time that simply doesn't have to be eaten up if you back up the table beforehand. So really, that's all there is to updating a table using PHP and MySQL. The difference here, like if you're going to be doing an individual record, again, this is one thing that you should be playing around with. At this point, you need to play, right? I am showing you examples. You need to get ideas in your head and you need to play around, see how this works. But like if you're going to be only modifying one record, what you would do is you would use a student underscore ID. So you could say change name to equal, I don't know, Polly, where student underscore ID equals 3. Right? So that's one of the reasons, like what I'm showing you now, like with updates, is one of the reasons why you need an absolutely unique identifier for all your records so that you can identify one specific record. So you can say, I want this to be changed, their name to be changed to something like Polly, and to make sure you don't modify 5 or 6 or 5,000 different records simply because you chose to say where on something that was not actually unique within the table. So that's one of the things that's very valuable. Again, having those IDs, that's something that is unique within the table. So you will only modify one record, even if you do something stupid, even if you do something really, really, really stupid, you'll only do something stupid to one record, not 1,000 records. So that's an important thing to think about. And anyways, with that, as always, I enjoyed doing this video and look forward to seeing you in the next one. Apparently, the type of content you just saw is not what Susan W. wants for the future of YouTube. This means that recommendations by YouTube to this channel have dropped massively and views are becoming comically small. I hate to ask. I used to say I would never ask, but if you could subscribe, like, comment, and most importantly, share the videos that you appreciate, that may help slow the death of this channel. Do remember that if anything at all happens to this channel, you can go to EliTheComputerGuy.com to view the content and access information not available on YouTube.